Hi everyone, it's wonderful to see you all here this morning, and I have the big honor of introducing Julie Levy, who is an outstanding alumna of Douglas College, class of '86, and she will be our keynote speaker. You can certainly read about her in your packets, but I'm going to give you a little bit of background. First of all, while at Douglas, Julie did many things. We're very proud of her. She created her own major, Economic Political Women's Studies. She received the prestigious Marjorie Summers Foster Award. She was an undergraduate fellow at the Eagleton Institute, the student liaison for the Rutgers Board of Trustees, and was very active in the Douglas College Government Association. Julie is the president and founder of Progressive Promotions, a marketing and promotional branding company that she started as a senior in her dorm room here at Douglas, and you're going to hear more about that. Now, Progressive Promotions is headquartered in Englewood, New Jersey, up in North Jersey, Bergen County. The company works with many Fortune 500 companies, including American Express, Kraft Foods, United Airlines, and many others. They have clients in over 64 countries. The company has had remarkable success in designing programs that strategically build brands and drive sales. And Progressive Promotions also works with nonprofit organizations, the Hemophilia Walk, many universities, including Rutgers and Douglas, we're proud to say. And the company has won numerous awards, both for its products, and also it's been named one of the promotional product industry's 2015 greatest companies to work for, and the Crain's Business Top 25 women-owned companies. Julie also is a graduate of the Harvard Business School Owner-President Management Program and holds a Master's of Advertising Specialties, which less than 1% of the industry holds. Dean Litt and I visited Julie at her headquarters about almost 2 years ago, and it was just a great visit. We got to see, just these whole displays of all your really cool products that you've developed for companies. And what was really terrific was that Julie sat with us, had lunch with us, talked about marketing for Douglas, and I'll tell you, no matter what you are, if you're doing science research, marketing yourself, presenting yourself, promoting yourself, it's all about, whatever you're doing. And she had some of your suggestions. I think that's why this year we have record enrollment. We did implement some of it. But what really struck me too when we were talking to Julie was how important it is to her to mentor women in business, especially women entrepreneurs. And she's been doing quite a bit. She's a current member of the Women Presidents Organization, which awarded her the first Mary Lehman McLaughlin Award. And I know that mentoring is very important to you, and you've said that Progressive Promotions offers internships throughout the year and is also participating in the Douglas Externship Experience. So it's really wonderful to welcome Julie here, and I also just want to note that her 2 daughters are here, Rachel and Sarah, and thank you for coming too. Without further ado, Julie, we welcome you to the podium. Thank you.
Do I need a mic or can we just talk? The mic? Okay, so I need another hand and I'm going to use the mic because I've got this. Let's give it a try. Okay, first of all, I'm thrilled and honored to be here today. And it wasn't that long ago that I was sitting in your shoes wondering what I was going to do in my next part of life. But what I want to talk to you today is what I did when I was at Douglas College, how I started my business, tell you a little bit about my story, and then give you some advice about what to do next and how to pursue your careers. So, this is the agenda for today. I graduated from Douglas, as was mentioned, in 1986. And just like all of you, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I loved economics, I loved women's studies, I loved political science, but there was no major that put it all together. So I invented something at the time called Eco-Poly-Web. And back then, there was no such thing as interdisciplinary majors. It was very unusual. So I went to Dean Munson at the time and pled my case and said that I really love women's studies, and I love political science, and I love economics, but I can't graduate with 3 majors and do all the fun extracurricular activities. So what did I do? I invented something that didn't exist. And that's what today is a little bit about thinking of ways differently and invent something that may not already exist. So I arrived in 1982. I went to my photo album last week and found some pictures that were quite amusing. But the chapel's still here and the campus looks beautiful and more vibrant than ever. And this is my favorite time of year here at Douglas. Now, as was mentioned, when I was a senior, I lived in Katzenbach on the 4th floor. And one day, I went to the bookstore here on the Douglas College campus, and I noticed that they had t-shirts, and they had some sweatshirts, but the designs and the fashions and the look were not that terribly appealing. And then I went over to the Rutgers College bookstore, and they had all of this cool swag. They had the best stuff. Funky sweatshirts, cool-looking t-shirts, boxer shorts. They had it all. So I went back to my dorm room, slightly frustrated, and said, there's something missing here. And what did I do? I invented something that didn't already exist. I called a friend who was an artist, and we started to create designs with the Douglas College logo. I found a blank goods t-shirt company in Secaucus, New Jersey. I found a screen printer in South Hackensack, New Jersey, and I created a line of Douglas College merchandise. Now, I need to give you a caveat. 30 years ago, college licensing wasn't a thing. If I try to do that today, they'd probably lock me up and put me in jail. But back then, you could do it. So I created a line of Douglas College apparel. And I went knocking door to door on every dormitory room, selling t-shirts for $5 each. And they were really cool. And people loved them. What happened next? I'm sitting in my dorm room, minding my own business, and I get a phone call from Mrs. Lowenstein. Now, you may not know who she is, but at the time, she was the manager of the Douglas College bookstore. And she said, hello, is Julie Levy there? Of course, I was in a single, I was the only one picking up the phone, and this is well before iPhones. I said, yes, this is Julie. And she said to me, Julie, are you selling Douglas College t-shirts on campus? Now, I had 1 second to make a choice. Tell the truth or lie? I told the truth. I said, yes, indeed I am selling t-shirts on campus. She said, well, I've heard some very interesting things about them, and I'd like to take a look at your line of t-shirts, and I'd like to consider them for the Douglas College bookstore. So, needless to say, I pack up my backpack, I throw t-shirts in the back of it, I run as fast as I can from Katzenbach to the bookstore, and say, hi, I'm here, Julie Levy, I have my t-shirts, and I start showing her all of the t-shirts that we had designed. And we also had designed at that point boxer shorts, and caps, and all of this cool stuff. So she says, interesting, interesting, and I'm like, interesting, and take another one out. And at that point, I probably had 2 or 3 in the line. And she said, I really like these. I said, great. She says to me, I'd like to place an order for 36 pieces, 3 dozen t-shirts. Wow, I thought I just won the lottery. You would have thought someone gave me $1 million. I was so happy. So I said, great, thank you very much. And that was my first wholesale order. I sold them for $4 each, 36 t-shirts in one fell swoop. And I said, wow, my knocking on dormitory doors are over. And they kind of weren't. I'll tell you more. So, what happened next? I graduated in 1986, and I went home and moved to my parents' home in Tenafly, moved back home. And at the time, all of my friends after graduation were getting jobs and moving to the city. But I didn't do that. I stayed home, I saved my money, and I worked out of my bedroom. And what I did next was I went knocking door to door in places like Hoboken and started selling t-shirts and hats and apparel to bars and restaurants on Washington Street in Hoboken. Went on, and the name of the company at the time was called T-Shirt Express, because it started with t-shirts. So I'm knocking door to door, and one day I go to a place called the East LA Cafe, and she says she wants to buy t-shirts. I said, fantastic, and then she says to me, Julie, could you a logo, my logo, on a cappuccino mug. I said, sure. I left there, I wrote up the order of 36 cappuccino mugs. I went to the nearest phone booth, way before iPhones. I called my mom and say, Mom, what's a cappuccino mug? It's hard to imagine a time when iPhones and cappuccino were not everyday vocabulary, but it was this foreign drink in Italy that people drank, and it was just becoming popular here in the US. So I could no longer call the company T-Shirt Express because we had expanded our line. We were now doing cappuccino mugs, and then somebody asked for aprons with their logo, and someone asked for hats with their logo. So fast forward a year or two, and in 1987, we became known as Progressive Promotions. So today, Progressive Promotions has about 40 employees worldwide. We have about 30 in Englewood, New Jersey. We have an office in Miami. So it's nice to visit that one. An office in Chicago. And now we just opened up our first European office in London. So I'm thrilled to say we now ship to over 64 countries globally, and we're expanding and growing every day. So that's my story, and that's how I started. And now I want to talk a little bit about your story. Finding your career path can be daunting at times, and you're here today to learn as much as you can. And what I hope you take away afterwards is process all this information and take away what works for you. There will be twists in your plot. There will be things that change. Be aware that not everything is as clear as it might seem in the beginning. There are many ways to write your own story, and I'm going to talk about 3 of them that are going to help you maximize your efforts. The first one is storytelling. Storytelling is really important. And the next one is marketing, and the third one is networking. For storytelling, what I want to remind you to do is to get really, really specific. Think about the specific thing. No longer can you go into the world and say, I want a job in engineering. You have to hone down and drill down and think about really specifically what kind of engineering, for what kind of company. So that's really important. There's a great new book out there that I urge you all to get, written by Kat Claus. It's a really long name of a book, so I'm going to read it. It's called Put College to Work, How to Use Colleges to the Fullest to Discover Your Strengths and Find a Job You Love Before You Graduate. It's a fantastic book and has a lot of tips. But some of the more important tips that she talks about are mapping out your goals and planning early. Now, particularly to you liberal arts majors out there, I might know one of you two personally. It's really important, because liberal arts isn't a linear career path, it's really important to visit the Career Center often, to use the externship program that Leslie talked about, and to go on informational interviews to learn more about what's out there in the world when your career path is not straightforward. Oh, I have a video. Down. Well, I can read it, but I can hear it, but you can't. So give me a moment, we'll get it going. We'll bring it back later. Okay. I think our sound is down on the video, so I'm going to have my friend help me. While he's preparing that, I'm going to talk about number 2. Number 2 in storytelling is fill your gaps. Take an assessment today of the things you do really well and the things that you don't do really well. Oops. Okay, ready? So this is about, ready? We're going to go back. This is really important. This is about planning, and this is about knowing who you are, and this is step number 1 in your career planning process.
Do you know what the secret of life is?
No, what?
This.
Your finger?
One thing. Just one thing.
That's great, but what's the one thing?
That's what you've got to figure out.
figure it out. The next one is filling the gaps, as I mentioned. Once you get really specific with your career path, you want to assess your strengths and your weaknesses. And one way to do that is if you're thinking or you might be interested in a particular career, one thing I might recommend is going to job listings, going to the classified job listings, and looking at those entry-level jobs, and looking for those specific things that people are looking for in you and your job. Now, since you haven't graduated yet, now is a perfect time to do something we call fill the gaps. And you want to fill the gap by, you want to fill the gap by assessing your strengths and weaknesses. And if there's something missing, for example, maybe you need an extra business management class. Maybe you need to participate in the externship program. Maybe you need to volunteer. Now is the time to fill the gap, fill those things that are missing in your resume. The last thing in this part is telling your story. Once you know what your skills are, once you know what they are, you need to tell the story. And what I mean by telling the story is you want to be able to clearly articulate what makes you different from everybody else applying for the same job. You must establish what we call a USA, your unique strategic advantage. And in telling your story, practice it in front of the mirror. And it should be a consistent story in your interview, in your cover letter, in your resume. The story needs to be consistent. It's very important. Then you want to map out your goals. You want to boost your skills. You're articulating the story. Once all these things are accomplished, what's going to happen? You're ready to jumpstart your career search and go ahead. Okay? Looking for a job in this world today is kind of like going into battle. And you need to be really prepared, and you need to know your mission. The most important thing to remember is that you are the hero in this battle. It's all about what you do and how you present yourself that's going to help you get this job. Next, what's really important with any story. You have your story, you know what it's all about, but if nobody knows your story, and you keep it to yourself, it has no value. So you need to publish that story. And the first way I like to tell people to publish their story is to create a LinkedIn profile. Create a LinkedIn profile. If you don't have one already, I urge you all to go back to your dorm rooms today and get your LinkedIn profile up to speed. And then don't just link in with your friends. Link in with your professors, your colleagues, previous employers, your folks' friends. Get out there and get your LinkedIn profile going. There's a website that helps you to sort of look at this more in-depthly. It's called www.students.linkedin.com. And it gives these fantastic tips for students to get a really strong profile up there and looks at what you should do with that. The next thing you want to do is, when you're building your online presence, is you want your own website. You want your own website, julielevy.com, whatever it is. And your own website doesn't have to be complex. It should just talk a little bit about you so that if recruiters are out there looking for you, they can find you easily, not just from LinkedIn, but through your website. Now, this is one that's a little sensitive for some of you. Please go back and scrub your social media presence. There's a survey that's done every year from an organization called JobVite. They interviewed 1,800 recruiters at major corporations all over the world to find out why people don't possibly get hired and what are the 6 worst things that can be present on your social media presence. So for those that don't know the obvious, profanity, alcohol references, sexual references, grammatical errors, spelling errors, and there's one more. I urge you to scrub your social media presence and don't take what I'm saying lightly. Recruiters always look at you online before they bring you in to interview you. So get rid of anything that doesn't look great. Oh, I remember the 6th one. Guns. Guns. If there's any reference to guns on your social media presence, is networking. Now, networking means a lot of things to a lot of people, but I'm going to tell you how to enhance and how to do a better job at networking. Everybody in this room needs a business card. As was mentioned earlier, I've got my daughters here today, and both girls had business cards from a very young age. And if you go to vistaprint.com, you can get free business cards. I think Rachel had her first business card when you were about 11, and Sarah probably when you were about the same age. It's really important, and on your business card, be sure to put your new URL address with your website. The next thing you want to do is join professional organizations. My personal favorite for me is the Women's Presidents Organization. But for you, find the organization within your interests, within your industry, and join. You're never too young to join. And go to the lectures and become experts in your field. Now what you're going to be doing is establishing a language, establishing a vocabulary for that industry, and you're going to sound really, really smart when you go to that first job interview, because the person interviewed before you is not a member of the Women's Engineering Association, but you are. It's a great idea to network. And another way to use professional organizations is to ask people for contacts and to meet potential employers and just to learn. When you go to the industry associations, you then become an expert in a particular field. Now, an expert sounds like a really big word, but the only thing an expert means is that you know more than the person that came before you on that interview. That's it. As long as you know more, you are now more of an expert than the person before you. And it helps, again, with your USA, with your unique strategic advantage. It helps you stand out amongst the competitors looking for that same particular job. Connect with alumni. Alumni, are really important. Reach out to alumni and don't ask them for a job. When you call somebody that looks interesting to you, never ask them for a job. Ask them for an informational interview. Ask them for 15 minutes of their time that they could share something about their career or their path, or perhaps they can introduce you to someone who knows about what you're interested in. It's a great way to network and to develop your interviewing skills, and also to use your alums in a way that's very meaningful. Douglas women stick together. You want to reach out to them and really nurture those relationships. Now, keep in mind, on your LinkedIn account, in the LinkedIn fields on the top, there's something called Find Alumni. And if you put in your college, you will then find other people who went to your college, went to our college, and you could reach out to them and say, hey, I'm a Douglas alum. I'm going to job fairs. Job fairs. Super important. Please, when you go to a job fair, don't just go wandering up and down, collecting all the cool swag, although it's good for my business. When you go to a job fair, what I want you to do is, prior to the job fair, there's always a listing of all the corporations that are going to be present. Pick 5, maximum 10, but I prefer 5, that you want to focus on. Pick 5 corporations that you think would be a potential possible employer for you. Do a lot of research. Understand everything about that company. Understand what their mission is, what their objectives are. And then when you go to that job fair, you go target it and you say, I really want to work for Progressive Promotions because branding and marketing is my passion, and I really want promotional products that are going to yield strong results, and I can help you do that. Be specific. And when you go, be that specific at the job fair, that potential employer is going to say, hey, she did her homework. She knows what she's talking about. Unlike the 55 people who came before her who said, hi, can I have a pen? So my point is, please do your homework and be very, very targeted. Use the job fairs and always follow up. And personalize the follow-up. When you send an invitation for a LinkedIn, don't send the generic template. When you send a follow-up thank you note, don't say generically. Be very specific about what you learned during that session and use that information in your follow-up. Okay. Also, when you send your letters and you send your resumes, be sure to customize them. Be sure to customize them so that they know that you're completely connected to that job experience. Okay. Let's see. Ready? Ready? Okay, the next slide is going to be alarming, so I'm just warning you in advance. And I'm wrapping everything up. I'm going to tell you some secrets if you don't want to get a job, what to do. Okay? These are the things that I've experienced over the past 28 years interviewing hundreds and hundreds of people. And I will tell you these things, if you do any of these things, I'm going to tell you the tricks on how not to get the job. Okay, you ready for this? The first one, don't send a cover letter. Don't bother. It's a waste of your time. You will not get the job, I promise you. If I get a resume without a cover letter, do you know where that resume goes? If I get a resume with a typo, one typo, do you know where that resume goes? I didn't hear you. If somebody doesn't call me to confirm the appointment in advance or call my personal assistant to let me know that they're coming, it doesn't go in the trash, but it doesn't look well on them. If someone comes to my company for an interview and doesn't know what we do, there is no way I would ever hire that person. If they don't know who I am, if they don't know what my interests are, they will not get hired. You must do your research, and so few people do. If they give me a wet, wimpy handshake or avert their eyes, I would never hire them. If they don't wear a jacket to the interview, it could be a pantsuit, it could be a skirt, it could be a dress, but if they don't wear a jacket, I won't hire you. If you don't have a business card, handy, ready to go, that we could exchange as professionals. If you don't, send me a thank you note. Now, my girls know I'm crazy about thank you notes. If you don't send a thank you note, ideally handwritten, I will not hire you. And if you don't follow up after the interview, a week later, 2 weeks later, I will not hire you. So, this is your list of things that you should not do if you should do if you don't want to get the job, and clearly do the inverse if you do want to get the job. So that's my talk for today. I want to thank you all very much for inviting me back to Douglas. It is an honor and a privilege to be in the room with you. And now I'm going to open up the room for questions if anybody has. And I'm just so happy and thrilled. And just thank you very much for having me today.